I would say that the Pope Leo that I know, that is Robert Prevost, that we'll still hear a lot from St. Augustine. I think he gave a magnificent, masterful discourse to the diplomatic corps at the beginning of this year. And it was fundamentally rooted in St. Augustine's City of God. I think we'll see more of that. I hope we see more of that. St. Augustine has a lot to teach us as Augustinians. We have a lot to learn still every day. We can learn something new from Augustine. And I think we'll see more of that. Because of his own formation as an Augustinian, Robert Prevost was formed to value community, right? And so I think we'll see more of, not more of that, a continuation of that. His motto, his Episcopal motto, right, is together as one in Christ, right, in unity.
Well, for Pete's sake, here we are again in Rome for our podcast. I'm James Riley, your host, and I'm joined today by Father Joseph Farrell, previously the Vicar General of the Ordinary General Chapter of the Augustinians, and as of this past September, the 98th Prior General of the Order of St. Augustine. Welcome to the podcast, Father.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's very good to have you. I know you're in the middle of the General Chapter meetings right now, and you're actually coming between meetings. How is that going? Can you explain what these chapter meetings consist of and how they're going this time around?
Sure. Thank you. It's a great question. So we had our ordinary chapter, as you said, in September of 2025. And at the chapter, we elect our new general council. So we have 6 members who are, we call them assistant generals, who work with the prior general in geographic areas and also thematic areas. There's been a period of 4 months now transition between the former council and the new council. So this week is really our first week of coming together, of really starting to kind of strategically plan for the next 6 years. So we call these meetings our general council meetings, right? Chapters we leave for the regional areas, but these are our general council meetings.
Chapter, so this would be the kind of biggest meetings that you would have among leaders of the different council or the chapters?
That's right. So it would be at the ordinary general chapter, we elect the prior general, the vicar general, and the assistant generals. The assistant generals basically come from the various geographic regions of the order and also are selected with regard to their experience and a thematic area, whether it's education, formation, justice and peace, working with youth, young adults, lay ministry. So those thematic areas and the geographic areas are then treated in a systematic way at our General Council meetings. The General Council, so we're 8 together, including the Secretary General, we meet 4 times a year in Rome, here in Rome, for 2 weeks at a time. So we try to make the most of the time that we have. So you mentioned we're in between meetings. So we have our morning sessions and our afternoon sessions. So I came here to be with you for Pete's sake, to be part of this podcast in between the sessions.
With the assistant generals, is a part of their role to be out in the field and be able to bring information from those different regions as well, to be, helping with the different chapters specifically and telling, bring information on how this chapter in the United States might be doing, or this one in Peru, or what have you.
Exactly. That's what they do. So that we try to balance our time between headquarters here in Rome and being with our brothers and our sisters in the geographic areas. And these meetings that we have, these general council meetings, are really kind of allowing all of us to hear together what's happening, to listen together, to discern together. Are there certain themes that we're hearing that are similar, whether we're in Africa or Latin America or the Asia Pacific area, North America or Europe?
How has that been as the prior general so far? Is this wouldn't be your first time convening a meeting as the prior general, but how has it been, since September? Has it opened up a lot for you? You were vicar general before, so you would have had a good grasp of, all the different information coming in. But what are you allowed to share some of the themes you're hearing now in your first year?
Sure. Yeah. So I've had some experience, as you mentioned, as vicar general for 12 years.
Yeah.
The previous prior general was a Spaniard, Alejandro Moral Anton, also a friend of Rome Reports.
Yeah.
Alejandro was very good about including all of us as the assistant generals, as vicar general, in coming to an understanding what are the major themes that are going on within the order. So there really are no big surprises yet,
Right.
as prior general coming to the table and listening to some of the themes.
Yeah.
We maybe what may be a new theme for us is the increased attention that's on the Augustinian order. Not everybody knows who knew who the Augustinians were before May 8th when Pope Leo was elected. All right, and he announced that he's a son of Augustine, an Augustinian. We're very proud of that, and it has brought more attention to us, and we're happy to share who we are now. And so some of our assistant generals are going out into different areas, and they're saying we're meeting some people who for the first time are saying, I never knew who the Augustinians were. Tell me more about them.
Yeah, I mean, a beautiful opportunity for witness too. Again, a very specific charisma within their church, because with the different religious orders, it really is just showing the diversity in the unity as well, where you have, again, the Dominicans, Franciscans, the Augustinians showing these different aspects, the heart, the feet, the heart or the mind of the church, and it's beautiful to see. So I think it's amazing to see not only the first American Pope being an Augustinian, but not only the first American Pope, but the first Augustinian Pope.
That's true.
I'm not mistaken,
that is
correct?
true. Yes, you're right.
So it's amazing to see just how that's going to come to the fore, and how the Augustinians can actually be a gift for the church at this time as well.
Yeah.
So thinking back to young Father Farrell, actually even before Father Farrell, you joined the Augustinians in 1983?
No, a little bit
87,
later.
87.
That's right. 87 is when I made my first vows as an Augustinian.
Did you ever picture at that time that you would be prior general? What was going through your head?
Never. No. It's a good question. It's a fair question. No. I grew up in a Catholic family in the Philadelphia area. Went to the parochial grammar school, elementary school. And the high school that I went to was part of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. It was administered by the Augustinians.
Okay.
So that's where I first met the Augustinians and really was impressed with not only what they were doing and teaching in the classroom, but the way they lived their lives. Community life is really important for the Augustinians. As a high schooler, I was not ready to join the Augustinians. I was impressed by what they did. Some of them I considered I was friendly with them.
Yeah.
Right, but wasn't ready to join. Maybe providential. After high school, I went to Villanova University, which is in the Philadelphia area, also administered by the Augustinians.
Can't get away from them. Yeah.
So in my undergraduate work of studying, again, I met the Augustinians there. I was a business major in college, so studied business management.
Yeah, very practical.
Yeah, very practical. It's funny, one of my dreams was to run a nursing home, to operate a nursing home. I enjoyed volunteering in nursing homes when I was in high school. But it was after university, right after university, when I joined the Augustinians as a pre-novice. Then kind of learned more in presence experience, live-in experience for 1 year.
Yeah.
We had 1 year of novitiate, which was in Racine, Wisconsin, in the Midwest, and then made my first vows in August of 1987.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Was there something about the Augustinians in terms of their spiritual charisma that, I mean, you had the familiarity with them already, having seen them in high school, through college as well, but was there, you would have been familiar with other religious orders as well. What was it about the Augustinians that attracted you?
Yeah. So I had an uncle, my father's brother, was a diocesan priest in Philadelphia. So I knew that call, that ministry, that service as an ordained priest.
Yeah.
What I saw with the Augustinians that attracted me most was that they cared about each other and they gave priority to living together. Not in a same apartment building, but they shared meals together. They shared recreation time together, and they prayed together. Right? The chapel and the dining room are two very important places in our Augustinian communities. And I come from a big family. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister.
Amazing.
You know, we had intergenerational grandparents living with us. So I was used to a lot of people living with us at the home where I grew up. And I found value in that. And I saw that in the Augustinians, whether they were working in the high school or at the university, and came to know them working in various parishes too. Wherever I went, I saw that community was critical for them and for us.
I know with the rule of St. Augustine, you have, all the different rules, but I believe it's within the first couple that there's that emphasis made in community, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a short rule, only basically 7 chapters, compared to the Benedictine rule, which is a little bit more detailed. Yeah. Augustine leaves the details really for the lived experience. But one of the first things he says is the main reason for you coming together is to live together in unity with one mind and one heart on your way to God. Starts out very beginning of the rule, right? Yeah. Then everything else is built upon that. Living together in unity, one mind and one heart on your way to God. It's a process. We're all on a pilgrimage.
Yeah, totally. With the Augustinians, you mentioned that they're coming more into the spotlight now and people are becoming more familiar with them. So I'd like to take that opportunity to ask, many people, of course, are familiar with the Dominicans. You see them in a lot of major churches and cities. You have the Franciscans, primarily known through people like St. Francis, very popular saint. What would you say to most people being introduced to the Augustinians? What is, the special charism of the Augustinian order?
Yeah. Ministerially wise, our charism is multifaceted. We were founded in the 13th century. So Augustine lived in the 4th and 5th century, right? Then there were 1,200 years of people kind of understanding who Augustine was, a bishop of Northern Africa. He left that rule, and there were people 1,200 years later still living that rule in some way. Pope Innocent IV in the year 1244 said, all right, you hermits up in Tuscany, following the rule of Augustine, order yourselves, come together. Yeah. Then Pope Alexander IV in 1256 said, can we give more definition to this order, right? And that the reason for coming together is to live in community and from community respond to the needs of the church at any particular time in history, right? In the Middle Ages, a lot of that was in universities and cities, right? Especially in Europe. We have founded many universities throughout Europe. Now we find ourselves in various ministries, whether it's in parishes, shrine ministry, advocacy ministry, healthcare ministry, education ministry. Everywhere. What's important for us is that from community, we're able to go out and serve. Yeah. It's kind of where we recharge our batteries, if you will.
Yeah. It's not a bad place to recharge.
Yeah.
I know you've had experience as a campus minister, is that correct? And then you were also later a professor at Villanova.
Yes.
How did your time as a teacher form you for the time that you're in now as Prior General? Can you see kind of a connection of that time in ministry for you teaching? Now that you're on the ground, you're kind of living that life as an Augustinian, but in the world, teaching and campus ministry. How did that help form you for the position you're now in as Prior General?
It's a very good question. I think all of my experience that I've had has brought me to where I am now. What does it do for me now as Prior General? Depends on what day it is. Some day it's, I wish I were back in the classroom teaching. I really miss that kind of personal contact with students. Or in campus ministry, going on retreat. There's some really great moments that one can live when one is on retreat. But I realize now the ministry that I'm asked to do now is more administrative, but it's also serving my brothers and sisters as the general. What I was fortunate enough to do when I taught at Villanova University, I taught most of my courses were around St. Augustine and the spirituality of St. Augustine. So I try as best I can to remember all of that I had studied in order to prepare to teach, to include St. Augustine in whether it's a letter I'm going to write, a homily I'm going to give. Sometimes you think, there was that for a while there, what would Jesus do?
Yep.
Sometimes I think, what would Augustine do at this point, in his own ministry?
Totally. When you were elected to Prior General, of course, you didn't see this happening when you were made when you first entered the novitiate with the Augustinians, but what was your reaction in that moment? I know with Pope Leo, he's spoken about, he's an Augustinian as well, but when he was elected at the papacy, it was this kind of, okay, Lord, you open the door, I'm going to walk through in trust. What was that like for you being elected to Prior General?
Yes, it was. For a few years before our general chapter of 2025, I've been sharing with my brothers, I was grateful that I had 12 years of serving on the General Council, and also made it clear I do not have to continue. 12 years, I used to say 12 years is long enough. Let's invite people to be able to serve the order in different ways. I also prayed to the Holy Spirit, help me to be open to what happens. So when I was elected, I said yes with 100% grateful and joyful heart. What I did the very next day, Pope Leo went down to Genezzano the day after he was elected, right, and prayed in front of the image of our Mother of Good Counsel, praying for good counsel. I am not Pope Leo. I don't want to even imagine that I'm, going to do what he's doing. But I went into the Vatican. There's an image of St. Joseph in the Vatican.
Is this the altar of St. Joseph?
Not the altar of St. Joseph. It's it's back. I don't know if you're familiar where the elevator is. Next to the Pietà, there's a glass door that's pretty dark.
Okay.
The other side of that glass door, there's a kind of a little chapel with a lot of relics in it. And it's also where the elevator is that goes up into the Apostolic Palace.
All right.
To the right-hand side of that elevator, there's an image of St. Joseph that I've really come to like. Cardinal Comastri had written a prayer card a number of years ago to St. Joseph using that image. So I went and prayed in front of that image, asking for St. Joseph to guide me, to protect us as an order, and to really to help us understand how we're supposed to serve the church in these next 6 years.
Yeah. And that it is, again, it's 6 years for the Prior General.
That's right.
And then you could be reelected after. Potentially, there's always the opportunity.
We're just taking it 6 years at a time.
There we go. Yeah. But I know there have been double elections, you could say, or repeat.
Yes.
Was that the case for at the time Prevost?
Yes.
When he was elected twice.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Robert Prevost, when he was our Prior General, served from 2001 until 2013. Then when Father Alejandro Moral Anton was elected in 2013, he was also elected for 2 terms.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right. You're just taking it one term at a time.
We are.
Yeah. Well, returning to your experience in education, there's a massive shift of what's happening in the younger generations regarding church attendance today. But now, 1 in 3 Gen Z adults say they believe in higher power, according to a new poll from several different research institutions, which is up from 2021, just after COVID, when only 1 in 4 believed in higher power. Do you think a change in education caused that, or do you attribute it to something else?
Probably we can't look at just one factor. I'm thrilled that this is happening.
Yeah.
I think I'm not really surprised right now. Sometimes we just need time, but I think it's a moment for us to really not ignore, to pay attention to it, to see this growing trend, and to prepare ourselves in our ministries, whether it's our education ministries, our parochial ministries, the missions that we have, to realize that this generation that seems to be saying, I believe in a higher power, and I feel called to do something with that. Our hope, our prayer, our mission is to create a space for them to feel welcome, to come and discern together, to travel together. As I mentioned about our rule of Augustine, we help each other on our way to God. If we can do that by inviting a younger generation,
Yeah.
to come to a safe place, to explore together, to ask those deep, profound questions, sometimes questions about our very existence,
Yeah.
right? And then get to that point of existence of a higher power, of God. Creating a space for that to happen is really important.
Very much so.
Our experience has been that we create that space in reality. The virtual world helps us reach out to each other, but there seems to be a real hunger to do something kind of back to basics, if you will.
Yeah.
Back to talking face to face with somebody,
Right.
like we're doing now. That's what helps, I think, create community and could kind of reintroduce this new generation that there's something valuable about that.
Yeah. And maybe there's something to that with, not maybe the rise of the Augustinians, but them coming to the spotlight where you guys offer this real community in the wake of things like COVID and isolation with social media, all of that. There's this path that people now see. And again, it's a way for them to enter into a new space with belief in a higher power and to be able to form that in its early stages as well. But also bring them out of, maybe the social media stuff's good, but bring them from that into something deeper and welcoming them and forming that. That's, I can imagine that would be something the Augustinians would be very good at.
And thank you. I think we are.
Yeah.
And I want us to be able to kind of read the signs of the times. Since Vatican II, we've been told the church needs to read the signs of the times, what they are. All right, help us to realize how we can best serve. Right. So the signs of the time right now are showing us that more young people are interested in kind of coming back and talking with each other. Yeah. From that, our hope would be that we find value in worshiping Jesus Christ together in a church.
Yeah.
And finding the Eucharist as something that's nourishing for us to be able to continue with our lives. That it's kind of not a reward for the holy,
right,
but it could be even medicinal. Can help us kind of get back on the right track. So all of those areas that have been for centuries traditionally Catholic, the Augustinians were going to work at trying to kind of help people see the value in that and take ownership of it.
Yeah. I know that you have recently started a Leo XIV study center in an international institute in Florence.
We have.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are probably wondering, Pope Leo XIV hasn't been around that long, but this institute, this study center has probably been in the works for a while now. Can you tell us about the name, how that name happened? Because I'm sure there were other ideas before Pope Leo came to the fore, and what the mission and the work of the study center and the institute are.
Yes. So it's in the section of Florence that's across the Arno River. So it's across the Arno. The church is Santo Spirito Church, where the Augustinians have been for centuries. Right. The current time, we have a small community of Augustinians that are there. There are 4 that live in that community. And the prior of the community, Father Giuseppe Pagano, is very creative. And he also, reading the signs of the times, said, we are in a perfect spot to be able to offer a hungry and thirsty population to explore some of the big topics. Right? So he has been planning this for years. You're right, even before May 8th of last year.
Yeah.
Creating a center where people can appreciate the beautiful art, Christian art that Florence is famous for.
Yep.
Right? And also that kind of safe space to explore together some theological aspects, theological themes. So it's been in the process for a while. Certainly, when Pope Leo was elected, Giuseppe Pagano thought, this is perfect. This is coming together. It's providential.
Yeah.
We'll have the Leo XIV International Center for Studies. So his hope is to invite professors to come to give talks and then kind of share information together. Invite students to come for a semester, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to explore either particular questions or the Christian art that Florence has to offer.
Yeah. Do they have formal relationships with any of the universities in Florence, or will they just be an institute that is kind of open to different groups?
Sure. So there's there's in Florence. There's an Institute of Theology that they have formed an alliance with them.
Okay.
They've also formed an alliance with Villanova University in the United States. And through those universities, want to reach out to others to say, could you consider this to be a spot where your students may consider, they used to be called the study abroad programs. People take a 3-month program. It doesn't have to be a 3-month program. It could be spring break program, fall break program, summer program, for faculty, for administrators, for students.
Yeah. Would the focus be mainly in religious art and history, or is it pretty broad, the liberal arts? Is it going to include, science, technology, or it will be a bit more focused? Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't know the exact focus. I know the initial intent was to be art and history, now and also St. Augustine. So I know there's a professor going up there who used to be the president of the Augustinianum here in Rome. I think it's February 26th. He'll be offering a lecture on St. Augustine, maybe St. Augustine in the City of God, at this center at the end of February.
Yeah. Wow. Well, February 26th?
26th, yeah.
All right. You heard it, folks. Be there. Yeah. Well, speaking of Pope Leo, how do you feel he's doing at this point in his papacy? You were, closer with him during his time when he was with the Augustinians in Rome. Now, since being elected to the papacy, I'm sure he's been busy. He's had a lot of stuff going on. But knowing him personally and then seeing him in his first 8 to 9 months of the papacy, where are you guys all at right now? Are you guys just overjoyed? Does he seem tired? Joyful? I mean, it's a tough post to be in, but how do you think he's doing so far?
It is. Great question. We're always very proud to see him. It's this, some of us are still starstruck.
Yeah.
Of course, he was our brother,
right.
And now he's serving the entire church and the world in many ways. And people are looking him as a leader. That's not a surprise to us. He has always been a very good leader, and because one of the most important aspects of leadership is to listen. And people have said that over and over again, that Pope Leo XIV is a man who listens. Right? Listens attentively. He has a few times talked about the synodal way, and that a really important foundation of the synodal way is to sit together and talk with each other, and to pay attention to the way you listen to someone. And Leo XIV has been doing that forever. We've known him to do that as he was our prior general, as a provincial before that in the Chicago province, as a missionary in Peru before that. He's a man who listens, not only to the words that are being spoken, but he also listens to what's going on in his heart, where the Spirit is moving him in his heart. And in his discernment, right, what he's hearing from the outside, what he's hearing from the inside, he makes decisions. Right? And we'll continue to see that in his papacy, I'm sure. Do we see him as tired? Once in a while, when he has a cold.
Can't blame him. Yeah.
Past few days, he's been. People have noticed his voice has been a little raspy. He has a cold, and everybody wants to send him chicken soup to kind of. He's still our brother. We still want to help him out.
Who can cook the best chicken noodle soup for Pope Leo?
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be great. I feel like that's got to be so specifically Augustinian, again, that listening to, And it was something, you talked about the synodal approach, but it sounds like the Augustinians have been doing that since their founding again, having that ear to the ground, having an ear to the heart of the church, you could say.
Yes.
Pope Leo really does seem to be doing that in a beautiful way.
Yeah, St. Augustine has a great phrase when he talks about, and so Pope Francis had used this, one of the World Communication messages, World Day for Communications. St. Augustine says we have to need to listen with the ears of our heart. Sometimes our physical ears don't work as well as they used to.
Yeah.
He said, but we always need to listen with the ears of our heart. And that's what we do as Augustinians. We try as best we can.
Do you have any favorite memories of Pope Leo before he became Pope, during his time with you guys?
Wow. The favorite memories that I have with him is when he served as Prior General. He was always very generous with his time with our youth groups. We usually would have an Augustinian youth encounter connected in some way either before or after some of the World Youth Day events that the Vatican would put on. And as Prior General, Robert Prevost would make time a day or two to be with the youth, the young adults, to listen to them, to joke with them, sometimes there's a lot of energy with youth groups, and to stay up with them.
Right.
He really was very good about, and I always say he was generous with that. He didn't just kind of show up, have a blessing, and then leave.
Right.
But he came and participated with them, even with the jokes, the skits, all the the cultural nights.
Right. He wants to enter into their joy,
and he did. Yeah.
You saw that with the Jubilee of Youth as well this summer.
Yes.
I think he knows how to enter into that energy, into that joy. You are the light of the world. That was great when he was standing out in St. Peter's in the beginning of the Jubilee of Youth, and he knows how to speak in that way because sounds like he's been listening again to the heart of the church and to the youth. And I think he's someone who could probably speak very well. Again, going back to those stats about Gen Z becoming interested in faith, in higher powers, it's not a surprise that Pope Leo would have an ear to that as well.
You're right.
Yeah. What are, for people looking now into forecasting, you could say, Pope Leo's papacy, what are some things you think they should keep an eye out for, or an ear out for during, the next 10 years, however many years God gives us Pope Leo? What are some things people should keep in mind or know about Pope Leo as we enter further into his papacy now?
Yeah. I would say that the Pope Leo that I know, that is Robert Prevost, that we'll still hear a lot from St. Augustine. I think he gave a magnificent, masterful discourse to the diplomatic corps at the beginning of this year. And it was fundamentally rooted in St. Augustine's City of God. I think we'll see more of that. I hope we see more of that. Yeah. St. Augustine has a lot to teach us as Augustinians. We have a lot to learn still. Every day we can learn something new from Augustine.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see more of that. Because of his own formation as an Augustinian, Robert Prevost was formed to value community, right? And so I think we'll see more of, not more of that, a continuation of that. His motto, his Episcopal motto, right, is together as one in Christ, right, in unity. All right. So we'll see more of that, opportunities that he may be given as a world leader to help bring together fractured pieces, all right, creating community. And in that unity, there's always still going to be diversity, right? Even in our Augustinian communities, right? We pray in the Psalms how beautiful and present it is when brothers and sisters live together as one, all right? But some of the versions say when they live together in harmony as one. Well, harmony doesn't mean we're all singing the same note.
Yeah.
Right? It means there are different notes coming together, but there's harmony.
Right.
And I think as a leader, as a world leader, one of the things that we'll continue to see in this papacy is someone who values recognizing, acknowledging diversity, right? And yet coming together in that diversity, being as one.
Yeah. I know he mentioned, I think it was on the way back from his apostolic journey, the book by Brother Lawrence.
Yes.
I'm drawing a blank on the name of the book right now. It was
To Practice the Presence of God.
Practice the Presence of God. Yes. Is that a common read for most of the Augustinian friars?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Most of us have read that in the novitiate.
Yeah,
In our
okay.
novitiate year, that's a big part of kind of just spending that related to Augustine's interiority, right? That we don't always have to be sitting alone in a room, the lights out, our eyes closed, to experience that interiority, that presence of God in our lives. We can do that by sitting at the breakfast table, by sitting in the chapel, by teaching a class.
Yeah.
Practicing the presence of God is recognizing God is present with us in all that we do. And that's a big part of our Augustinian formation for decades now.
Yeah.
We've been doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you have the universal call to holiness, but that's not that it's not only that everyone's called to holiness, but that at all times, in a certain way, you're called to holiness, which I would imagine, Brother Lawrence would be getting to that point, which is beautiful.
That's right. So Brother Lawrence is always saying about we're in the presence of God. And practicing that is always remembering that whatever we're doing it in the presence of God. We're not hiding anything from God.
Right.
We're always doing it in the presence of God.
Beautiful. So to close out, Father, we have a rapid fire round of questions. 5 questions.
Okay.
So we'll run through these quickly, but get ready.
Okay.
So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question is, who's your favorite Pope of all time?
Pope Leo XIV.
Walked right into that one. Who is an underrated saint?
Oh, who is an underrated saint? I would say St. Nicholas of Tolentine. He was our very first Augustinian to be canonized a saint. He's an Italian man, served up in Tolentine in Le Marche area of Italy.
Yeah.
I think he doesn't get enough attention.
Yeah. I think, you know how the people do saint in a year? Like they'll have a saint for All Saints Day? He was my saint last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Saint
I
Nicholas
had
of
no idea
Tolentine.
who he was until that. So
Right.
it's great.
His statue is actually in St. Peter's Square. He's one of the statues up on the top there.
Okay.
He's the only Augustinian friar that's up on the top there.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go find that now.
Go find it.
All right. Favorite fact about the Vatican that you're allowed to tell me?
Oh, favorite fact about the Vatican that I'm allowed to tell you. Other than that beautiful mosaic of St. Joseph that's behind the elevator.
That one works too.
I think that's a really good one.
All right. St. Joseph's. If there was an Olympics for major religious orders in the Catholic Church, Jesuits, Dominicans, Franciscans, Augustinians, what sporting event would the Augustinians win?
Oh. I would say that they would win. It has to be a sporting event. So we're talking
event.
all right. I'm going to say basketball.
Basketball.
Pallacanestro.
All right. Is heavy American presence in?
It is, but there's a lot of teamwork that goes with basketball.
There you go.
All right. So I think that just our ability to work with each other, to read what's going on with our co-players.
Yeah. Are you a basketball player?
I am.
All right. All right. There we go. Last question. Not really a question, but
okay.
Finish this sentence.
Oh.
For Pete's sake, I wish people would understand ...
For Pete's sake, I wish people would understand that it's okay to have a difference of opinion, and the person that has the other opinion is not necessarily my enemy.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Father, for joining us on For Pete's Sake. It's great to have you.
James, thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.